Wow.
Well, hey. Hey guys, and welcome back to Crash Talk. It has been a minute. It's been a minute. I've missed you. I have. I honestly have. I've missed doing this, sitting in my room and talking shit about films that I like. And do I have a fun, silly little goofy film to talk to you about today? So over, the holiday season, it's time to connect with family and friends and to be nostalgic, which is what this channel is all about. And as I was thinking about films, I remembered one that I feel like we do not talk about enough. A classic 2010 Disney Channel original movie starring Britt Robertson. So it's just turning into a fan channel for her, apparently, called Avalon High.
Wow.
So this film, as I mentioned, came out in 2010, and it is a Disney Channel original movie, one of the few that doesn't have a sequel. Once I talk about it, you can decide whether or not you feel like it deserved one. It is based off of a book by the same name by Meg Cabot, who wrote The Princess Diaries, which is just like instant classic. It puts the bar very high when you're coming into this movie. This movie has a very different vibe from The Princess Diaries, so just go ahead and set that bar to the side. It's directed by Stuart Gillard, who also directed Twitches, classic, masterpiece, but who also directed Girl vs. Monster. There's variety, there's range. So this movie, as I said, it stars Britt Robertson. Yes, girl, slay. You can say what you want about her, but she had those teen movies in the 2010s on lock, and I love that for her. And she has a new movie out on Netflix. I think it's called The Merry Gentleman, and you best believe I will be sitting down and I will be watching it. It also stars Greg Sulkin, who, if you're not familiar with, was like one of those hot guys on Disney Channel. He did, in fact, play Alex Max Russo's. That would have been a different story. He did, in fact, play Alex Russo's werewolf boyfriend on Wizards of Waverly Place. And I don't think that we should ever let him forget it. Do not talk to me about the remake. Don't. Thank you. So this film is a very interesting one. It is centered around the idea of the reincarnation of King Arthur. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you've ever thought about King Arthur outside of your English class, but you're going to get to think about it today. So that English teacher that shoved that down your throat, go ahead and tell them thank you, because you're going to know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so in the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Allie, who is our main baddie. That's Britt Robertson's character. And we're also introduced to her professor parents, which, like, if you didn't realize that they're professors because of the exorbitant amount of books that they have in their house, we also get this information out of their mouths within like 3 seconds into the film. Thank you so much. I love a context drop. So besides, getting introduced to a couple of our main characters, we also get this interesting dream sequence of like a bunch of knights and horses on a beach. More on that later, honestly. As we get started, we learn that Allie has been the new girl for the past few years of her life, and she is very excited because her parents have actually decided to like settle down in this random town that they're in. Incredibly unclear on where this town is supposed to be set. I looked up their filming location because I was like, where is this supposed to be? Apparently some of the beach scenes and more other King Arthur stuff I'll talk about later, they filmed in New Zealand, which I'm like, okay, Disney Channel original movie budget. And then the rest, unclear. Maybe some random town in the Northeast. Like, you can never really tell what temperature it is outside either. Whatever. That's not the point. I literally forgot where I even was because I'm just genuinely so confused by it. So Allie is very excited that her parents are settling down in this spot because, quote unquote, it's a special place.
That's suspicious.
Okay. And immediately she decides that in her excitement, she wants to go out for a jog. Yeah. I have personally never been that individual, but like, who am I? Like, she's a runner, she's a track star. She does go out in perhaps the most horrendous outfit of the entire film. And the fact that it is perhaps the only outfit actually that repeats throughout the film. Every time she goes jogging, she's wearing this fit.
No! No! No!
Whatever. As she goes jogging, she runs into another one of our main characters, who is Awu, Greg Sulkin's character. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and apologize now, because I will probably be doing that throughout the entirety of this video. I also plan on, this is a complete disembarkment from, is that the correct word?
Nope.
Departure. This is a complete departure from what we were just talking about, but I do plan on doing a Teen Wolf recap. And so I'll have to stop doing the before I do that, because it would be egregious in that. So we're putting a stop on it in this video. So she runs into Will and they have a moment, whatever, it's fine. She also has a flash of like medieval times, King Arthur something or others, whatever. This happens throughout the film. We are also hit on the head throughout the film with the idea that Will is the reincarnation of King Arthur, so just like tuck that away in the back of your head. So the next day at school, we get introduced to a bunch more of our main characters. We meet Marco, who's like emo, bully, like boy. He's also Will's stepbrother, giving very like evil stepbrother vibes. We meet Miles, who is like annoying, nerdy, arrogant, psychic. More on that later. We meet Jen, who is like pretty girl, Will's best friend, Will's girlfriend, and also like cheerleader, you know, of course she is. And we meet Lance, who is like cool guy, football guy, and has been Will's best friend since diapers. This is also where we get introduced to the history teacher. His name is Mr. Moore. And honestly, immediately off the bat, to me personally, he's giving weirdo energy. He is giving certified freak, and not in the good way. He's a freak, he's a weirdo. Do you see this hat that he always wears? It's weird. So at this point, Mr. Moore assigns everyone a class project, aka forcing everybody to learn about King Arthur for the sake of the film. We love to see it. And we learn about something called the Order of the Bear. This is the like central prophecy of the whole film, which is basically the idea that King Arthur is going to be reincarnated and will lead the world, ? Into an age of enlightenment. Of course, his evil stepbrother Mordred is there to try and stop him and bring in a new age of darkness. Pause. Several questions at this point. Let's start with a couple about Arthur. 1. Why is this King Arthur's responsibility? I'm just saying that a lot of the friends that we have from the UK island do not have a good history of leading the world into enlightenment. Okay, on that same note, enlightenment for who? Like, what does that mean exactly? Is what I would like to know. And lastly, if me personally, I do not give a fuck about King Arthur, it just feels a little bit not fair to me that my happiness depends on him. As I said, the prophecy is threefold. You have the reincarnation and the enlightenment, you have Mordred trying to stop him, and you also have the timing of all of this, which is a meteor shower happening at the same time as a lunar eclipse. Cool. Guess what happens at the end of the film? There you go. The plan to stop King Arthur via Mordred is threefold as well. You have cause infighting among the knights. You also have crush his spirit, so he has no will to go on. And you also have put doubt in him about his fate and his destiny. I think those last two are switched, but you get the point. So at some point, Allie, runner track star, goes for another jog, and her horrible, yet apparently magical beanie floats off into the wood and into the woods. Stop. Why is she singing again? It floats off into the woods and finds Mr. Will Wagner, who's like lamenting about, you know, his hard knock life or whatever. And she gives him a motivational speech. I think we're supposed to believe that this is a moment that like sparks chemistry for the two of them. And you might be wondering, hey, isn't that basically emotionally cheating on his part? And like, yes, you are correct. In my personal opinion. But the film is like, no, don't worry about it, because Lance and Jen are cheating on him anyway. Hooray! Whatever. And here are my thoughts. Here are my thoughts on that. Will and Allie, Lance and Jen. If they were all simply a polycule, it would be fine. It would actually make the film much more interesting and perhaps even make a little bit more sense, because at some point Jen is like, I love Will, I always will, and so does Lance, he loves him too. Then date. Get out of my face. Stop playing in my face. You're pissing me off. You might be thinking at this point that this film is about the reincarnation of King Arthur. You're incorrect. I know I said that at the beginning. Wrong. That is the secondary thing that this film is about. The main thing that this film is about, football. This film is about football. At some point we get a football game and, you know, they win, they do great, whatever. And because they win, we now have a football party. Once again, you could tell that I was cool in high school. At this party, there are several important things that occur. One, we get Miles and some random girl having a conversation supposed to have chemistry. Let me tell you something about this random actress. She had 3 lines in this film, and she collected that check. And I hope she's still collecting that check. She's queen. She is everything to me, actually, in fact. You also have Marco and his, like, band of My Chemical Romance rejects, causing shit, like, stirring up trouble for whatever reason. Whatever. You also have Allie and Will having another weird moment. And you also have Allie catching Lance and Jen cheating. Oh my gosh. So after Allie and Jen have a light eyes off, Allie leaves and she's like, oh my gosh, like something so weird is going on. I think that the prophecy is actually coming true. And you might be wondering, whoa, that feels like a leap from what we were like just doing, talking about anything. But here's my thing. I think that sometimes you need to recognize the genre that you're in as an individual. If weird shit keeps happening and someone's like, the aliens are coming and they want us all to play tubas or else they're going to kill us, you better pick up that tuba. Because what's the point of not believing them? Like, what's the point of not believing them? Okay, so it turns out to not be true. So you just look a little bit crazy for like 3 seconds. But at least, like, if it is true and the aliens are coming with their love of tubas, then you know how to play the tuba. So anyways, while Allie has a bunch of moments where she's like, how am I supposed to tell Will that he's King Arthur and that the prophecy is coming true? Will is like getting his ass handed to him. Like, his knights, aka the football team, which is literally called the Knights, are fighting and don't really trust him. And like, you know, obviously Lance and Jen are cheating on him. He doesn't know this information yet, blah, blah, blah. We also get a scene at some point where Miles finally admits to Allie that he's psychic. And I need Stuart, if you're watching this, to explain to me why this scene was filmed like a coming out scene. Like, at some point, Allie is like, I know what you are. Like, you can just say it. It's okay. Like, you're psychic. And he's like, no, don't say that word, Allie. No. Hold on. After Allie's like, it's okay to say gay. I mean, psychic. And, you know, they have a whole thing. They bring up the Order of the Bear and the fact that, like, maybe the prophecy is coming true to Allie's parents. And they're like, yeah, bitch, why do you think that we moved here? Gagged her a little bit, honestly. So now her and Miles are teamed up, linked up, trying to figure out how they're going to protect Will and also how they're going to, like, tell him that he's the reincarnation of King Arthur, whatever. And once again, as I said, Will is getting his ass handed to him. The football team still doesn't really like him, and you can tell that he's really at his lowest because at some point we get a scene of him doing push-ups in Tim's. Yeah, and he's also wearing a short sleeve shirt, which once again raises the question of where are they and what temperature is it? I just want to know. Just in case you forgot, as I said, this film is about football. So it's the final game that will help them get to state, that if they win, they go to state. If they lose, they do not go to state. And if they go to state, they still might lose, but that doesn't matter because that's not what the game is right now. Right now, the game is to get to state. And oh, are we footballing? At this game, this final game, which happens to be the Knights versus the Dragons. Yeah. Will finally sees Jen and Lance cheating on him and like zooms off before the game begins. And Allie, who sees this and sees him leave and who is a runner who's a track star, manages to catch up to him. at some point, presumably like much after he stops, because of course he's at that same tree in the woods that her magical beanie flew to in the beginning of the film. And they have a conversation and she's like, Will, like, you're King Arthur, Will, you have to save everyone. And he's like, these little King Arthur metaphors were really cute at the beginning of this, but now it's starting to get a little bit weird. But that's okay, because I'm motivated to go back to the game. He goes back to the game. Big win for us who know that this film is about football. And at this game, you know, he chats with Lance in the locker room and he's like, hey, buddy, bro, it's fine. Like, you can have my girl, I guess. Whatever. Cue the CGI meteor shower and lunar eclipse that we had talked about before. Remember, this is the big game. This is the big night. So, of course, it's when the reincarnation of King Arthur is supposed to happen. And also cue Will getting snatched at halftime. Like, how did you manage to get kidnapped, like, in the 5 seconds that somebody didn't see you? I'm not saying that his teammates were right for being a little bit pissed off at him. And, you know, like, at one point they just let him get tackled as, like, punishment for being late to a game. Whatever. But you're never on the field. Allie, once she realizes that Will is missing, is like, Miles, use your to figure out where he is. He figures out that he's in the school theater. Cool. They get there. Marco is, like, presumably bleeding out on the ground. Let me tell you, Allie and Miles do not give a fuck. They do not care. They run right past him into the theater, find Will. Hooray. Cue the stage lights, the smoke, the awe. Just kidding. But cue the stage lights for real. There's a problem. Marco, aka the incredibly obvious red herring emo bully boy, is not Mordred, the evil stepbrother sent out to ruin King Arthur before he can realize who he truly is. And if he's not Mordred, and you're not Mordred, and I'm not Mordred, then who's flying the plane? It's Mr. Moore. It's Mr. Moore. It's Mr. Moore now sporting an incredibly awful British accent, but it's fine. Imagine the actor is, like, actually British. I, like, thought about that just now, and I was like, that would be so rude of me. Mr. Moore's Mordred. There's a little scuffle, and Mr. Moore gets shoved into a hole. It's giving very, Pretty Little Liars, like, season 5, I think? Case in point, nobody cares to check if he's knocked out and or dead, which he is neither, but they do have a lovely little context drop above the hole, which is when we learn that Marco is a good guy. Mordred, aka Mr. Moore, who is neither knocked out nor dead, like, gets back up and now has a horrible wig on and is like, rawr, need to kill King Arthur. So Allie runs and grabs a stage prop little sword and is like, stop. Don't touch Will. And what's this? A little twinkle, twinkle, twinkle of CGI turning that fake sword into a real sword? Yeah, you guessed it, folks. Allie's King Arthur. I do feel like at some point, like, I feel like the first time that I watched this, I must have been gagged at that. Like, it must have blown little Ayana's mind.
It's me, Jesse, and Ari. If they test me, they're sorry.
So now that we know that Allie is King Arthur for real, cut to that beach sequence in the medieval times that we saw at the beginning of the film. They're on horses, they're knights, they're wearing armor, Allie's hair is long, and for some reason Mr. Moore, aka Mordred, on top of having this horrible wig, and on top of having this horrible British accent, and on top of just generally looking like a loser, is also sexist. Like, oh, King Arthur can't be a girl? Of all of the reasons, of all of the things going on, that is what you say out of your mouth? Don't piss me off. I need you to pick a struggle, okay? And have it to me after class. All of the bros are here. They're battling. There turns out to be evil teacher Miles, who is turns out to be Merlin, and he calls back his staff, which Mordred is using, whatever, and Allie also kicks his ass. Great. Then they flash back to reality. Whoop, there's gravity, and Mr. Moore gets embarrassed because he's, like, trying to explain to the security guard that shows up out of nowhere that my gosh, King Arthur's back, and it's actually Allie, and the sword that she was having that has now since turned into a prop sword was real, and she was threatening him, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you what is not important, everything that happened just then, because what is this film about? Thank you. I like when you guys participate. That's fun. This is a fun little relationship. This film is about football. So we have to get back to the big game. So they get back to the game. There's like 12 seconds on the clock. Somehow they manage to win. And I don't understand much about football, so I'm just gonna leave that there. But now they win, everybody's happy, all the couples are getting together. Miles and that random girl who collected her check. Jen and Lance and Allie and Will.
Stop from running, but you can't wait. Bury all the evidence, your loneliness when you crash and burn.
They end with like a scene around the round table and everybody's friends now, including Marco, like justice for Marco, and her back on a horse, roll credits. So final thoughts about this film. I do have several follow-up questions. Follow-up question number 1, what now? Like, is she just like always going to be King Arthur? Does she have responsibilities as a part of this? And like, can she put reincarnation of King Arthur on her college applications, her resume? Like, it just feels like I should never have to do an extracurricular again. Other than that, it is a silly, goofy movie, and it's fun. Like, I am a history nerd, so anything that has like a little bit of like history twang in it, I do eat up generally. And honestly, it's one of the things that's like the most annoying about the fact that like so many old like quest films and stuff like that are like incredibly racist and like anti-indigenous and stuff like that, because I love culture and history and all that kind of stuff, and like I want to enjoy a little treasure hunt. I want to enjoy an Indiana Jones, but I literally physically cannot. And so it feels, a movie like this that's just like a little bit silly goofy with its history usage feels fun. Like, it's just fun to me. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me what you think. If you were gonna be a reincarnation of any... No, I can't ask you guys that. But anyways, hopefully I won't have so much of a break in between, you know, uploading things. It was holidays, and then I was getting my ass handed to me a little bit by my job.
Help me!
So what now? The what now is I'm back. And I hope that you're sticking around. And if you are, then I'll see you next time when we have something else silly goofy to chat about. Until then, bye!